Welcome to Financial Issues with Shana Seth, where we join reality with truth, helping you to make the most of your money by honoring God with your investments. Now, here's your host, Seth Udinsky, sitting in for Shana Seth.
Welcome back to Financial Issues, everybody. Great to be here with you this morning, Tuesday, June 4th, 2024. We're live today, so hope you'll join the conversation. 610-363-1110 is the number to call in. Phone lines are open. You can join us there. You can join us on the chat, on the website. Great to be here with you here, folks. A couple things to get to right off the bat. I want you to check out Shana's commentary if you are a partner. It was updated yesterday. Really good wisdom there for the specifics of the strategy right now during this specific time period as we look at what's going on in the markets. So please take a look at that when you have the chance. If you don't know what I'm talking about, it's probably because you're not a partner. So today's a great day to become one. Go to financialissues.org and click Become a Partner. On today's show, Shana will join me, second segment. We'll talk more about some of this pride nonsense. We'll also hear some great wisdom from our founder, Dan Celia, in this segment as well as later in the show. Headlines, market updates as usual. And we're also going to ask an important question as we're in the midst of this Pride Month. We talked about it a little bit yesterday, but the question is this, and I'll prime you for it. We'll get to it later. Is rainbow flag marketing in June enough to strike a company from BRI status? So if you see a company change its logo, give the positive language for the pride stuff, is that enough? We'll look at that later on in the show. But for right now, let's take a look at what's going on here in the markets. Yesterday, they opened in mixed territory to kick off the month. By midday, all three of the benchmark indices were trending downward. Economic concerns seem to persist, folks. Now, part of the reason for this was because of the manufacturing PMI. It was released yesterday. Came in at 48.7% for the month of May. That was contracting in the month of May for the second straight month, 18th time in the last 19 months that it's done so. And for the Dow Jones, it was also driven lower partially due to some tough afternoons from Caterpillar as well as Goldman Sachs, two of the big Dow Jones stocks there. By late afternoon, the NASDAQ clawed back into positive territory. The other two remained below the surface. The benchmark indices actually ended the day somewhat better than they'd started. By Monday's closing bell, the Dow was still the loser. It was down 0.3%, while the S&P 500 was up 0.1, the NASDAQ up over 0.5 percentage point. Treasury yields continue to tick downwards. Yesterday, they finished under 4.4%, right around 4.38%, and oil was down to $74 a barrel. OPEC Plus is phasing out involuntary production cuts for oil. Right now, the prices of oil are even further down. They're under $73 a barrel now, while U.S. Treasury yields are hanging a little bit lower than they were yesterday as well. The pre-markets, as they sit, are all in negative territory. I think the markets were a little spooked by the day yesterday. The Dow is right around a fifth, the S&P 0.3, the NASDAQ a fifth as well. So that's what the markets are looking like this morning as they wait to open for the day. Hey, folks, a couple of you had asked this yesterday, and so I just wanted to give a shout out to all of you. We did get our final tally for our preborn campaign, and I just want to again thank you all so much for the incredible generosity that you all showed to our ministry, to preborn, and especially to the babies and mothers whose lives are saved and whose spiritual lives will be saved as well because the gospel has gone forth. So from the bottom of our hearts here at the ministry, thank you. Thank you so much for an amazing, to my understanding, record-breaking campaign that we had in May. So our final tally was more than $327,000 raised, $327,000. That equaled over 58 ultrasound machines underwritten. Reminder, these machines are going to be placed into strategic locations in preborn clinics throughout the country in areas where abortion is highly concentrated. And so these are going to be life-saving machines, and you all just did a phenomenal job. Again, thank you for joining us in saving babies, spreading the gospel, blessing preborn, and also blessing the ministry of FISM, because that final tally that we got is going to be given back to us as a financial gift by this generous donor. So once again, I cannot thank you enough. You all did an amazing job in this campaign, and it was a joy to be a part of it with you. Well, let's get to some foundational wisdom here from our founder, Dan Celia, on paying off debt and investing. He took a call a couple years ago from a listener. It's really, really good information here I wanted to give you as we start our show. So here's our founder, Dan Celia, on paying off debt in investing. Here he is.
About $25,000 worth of debt, including credit cards and a car payment. And okay, some say you shouldn't invest if you got debt and this and that. What do you think about it? Can you help me out?
Well, sometimes, Joe, we're always going to have a little bit of debt, but I wouldn't tell anybody to pay their car loan off, as debt. I mean, I would just let that go pay it, month after month. What I would say to you is the best thing you can do is when you do get it paid off, that you keep that car for, as long as you possibly can. Because without a loan, that's going to help you. But I'd probably set that aside. So whatever debt you have, it makes sense to pay it off because that's going to free up more discretionary income for you to invest and to save. I would want you, Joe, to go to a Fidelity, a TD Ameritrade, E-Trade, one of those. You can do it online. And
looking at Vanguard, you think Vanguard is
Vanguard is fine. You can go to but I would want you to go to Vanguard brokerage, their brokerage side. That would allow you some point in time, maybe not right away, to also buy stocks, individual stocks. That would allow you to do that. So, but anyway, you go there, you open up a Roth IRA account, a Roth IRA account. Now, because you're 44, you can only put $6,000 a year in that. That's all you're allowed to put to max it out. Now, when you're 50, it goes up to $7,000, but you can only put $6,000 a year in it. If you open up that Roth account and you put $500 a month in that, you'll be maxing it out every year. And I would tell you to pick something like an ETF and just put $500 a month in that. Put the other $500 a month to your debt. Get that debt paid off as quick as you can. But, so work on both of them at the same time at this point. And I think, and obviously at some point in time, your debt is going to get paid off. When that debt gets paid off, I would continue for at least 6 months to put another $500, keep putting that $500 only now towards your savings account, not your investments. That's different. Your savings account, because it's your savings account, Joe, that is going to keep you out of debt. Because if your transmission blows in your car, you can go to your savings account and you can use that money to fix your transmission as opposed to using a credit card. And so it's important that you have a good savings account. And then you can start switching that $500, take it to $250 in your savings account or $200, and then use that to go into your investment account as well. But that's where I'd want you to start. It's far from being too late to start. And I think you'll be fine someday when you retire.
Good stuff from Dan Celia there, as always. Hey, folks, just a reminder, please do, again, check out Shana's commentary she put up yesterday. Gives a really good insight on where our strategy is right now in terms of what's going on in the markets. So I won't belabor the point by reading exactly word for word, but please do check that out if you're a partner. And if you're not a partner, please become one today. It's a great, great way for you to be able to use your investment money in a way that honors God. So very cost-effective, $132 a year. You get access to everything that we offer, including monthly conference calls. And so I know some of you have been wondering, maybe hearing a little bit more from Shana on what she mentioned in this commentary here. We will have a conference call coming up later this month. I don't have a specific date for it yet, but be on the lookout for that. It's going to be coming up soon, and I'm sure we'll get a little more information on exactly what's going on there. In this next segment here, we're going to hear from Shana. She's coming on with me. Before we get to that, I did want to reach a quick headline here. Inflation looks like it'll take years to fall to that 2% target. This is according to the Cleveland Fed model. So it's likely going to take at least 3 more years, according to the Cleveland Federal Reserve Bank, for the U.S. Federal Reserve to reach its 2% target interest rate. Now, the report states COVID-era supply chain disruptions, surges in consumer demand, they've been resolved, but add very persistent forces are fueling ongoing price pressures. I think the Cleveland Fed Bank is onto something here, but I think even that target is a little bit off, folks, because the 2% benchmark is a pipe dream in general. I don't think the question is when will we get back to 2%, but the question should be, will we ever get back to 2% interest? And if government continues to spend money in this way, it's not going to happen. We got more financial issues coming up right here, folks. Shana Burt joins me coming up next.
I just love the first book of Exodus. The king says, the Jews are too many. Get rid of them. I command you to kill the firstborn. But the midwives to the Hebrews heard the order, and what did they do? They defied it. And God dealt favorably with the midwives and gave them families. He blessed them for loving life. He blessed them for saving babies. We have re-entered the death cult in this country. You think about how much we elevate death, whether it be the chopping off of parts and we call it transgender care, whether it be shouting our abortion, and you see it so beautifully in John 10:10. It is the divide of the entire scriptures. Now, most people would say John 3:16, but think about it. The enemy has come to lie, steal, cheat, and destroy. I have come to give life and life more abundantly. That's the whole ball game, everybody. It is everything. And we have to have the joy of Jesus Christ to enjoy life and to protect it. It's a gift from above. And Preborn is leading the charge.
Navigating through investment options can be challenging, especially when you're determined to uphold your God-given values. Every dollar you invest is a vote for the world that you want to live in. Let your values guide your investment decisions and help to shape the culture in which we live. Become a beacon of light and pave the way with biblically responsible investing. Timothy Plan, where faith and finance collide. Before investing, carefully consider the fund's investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses of the investment company. This and other important information can be found in the fund's prospectus. To obtain a copy, visit timothyplan.com or call 800-846-7526. Read each prospectus carefully before investing. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal.
Welcome back to Financial Issues. Today is June 4th, 2024, and we're continuing to push back against the darkness of Pride Month.
Amen. We're trying our best, Jenna. That's right.
Our stewardship verse of the day today comes from Romans 1:26 and 27. For this reason, God gave them up to their dishonorable passions.
Yeah, he did.
For their women, they exchanged natural relations for those that are contrary to nature, and the men likewise gave up natural relations with women and were consumed with passion for one another. Men committing shameless acts with men and receiving in themselves the due penalty for their error. Seth, what do you think?
It's heavy stuff, Shana. You know, I mean, first of all, people who think the Bible is pro-gay obviously have not read this verse or the countless others like it, where we see very clear condemnation of homosexuality. And it's not to elevate one sin over the others. I think there's a lot of people, both within the church and without, who will say, you Christians, all you talk about is homosexuality and abortion. That's not all we talk about, but the reality is those are the issues of the day. And so especially now in June, as we're talking about Pride Month, it's everywhere. We have to offer a response to it, Shanna, and this is our response. It's interesting. Paul is speaking 2,000 years ago almost, but he's talking in the past tense, which tells us a couple things. One, this is timeless. Two, this stuff had been happening for thousands of years in the Roman Empire. Nothing is new under the sun. We're seeing the same thing happening over and over again. And the answer for this is standing firm on the truth. This stuff is wretched, and God has a righteous hatred for it. We have to have the same kind of hatred, Shannon. It doesn't mean we hate the people. We show them the love of Christ, but we need to have that right response of hatred for the sin, seeing it for what it really is, which is destructive.
And we love them so much, we want to tell them the truth.
That's right.
We want to tell them the truth, and that if they persist in having their own way, God will let them have their own way.
Yeah.
And it's just, we just want to help people understand what the consequence of getting your own way is when it's in opposition of what the Lord tells us about how we should live.
Yeah. Amen.
So, yes, Jesus gets us. That's becoming real popular to say. But he loves us too much to leave us like we are, right? That's why he gives us some really clear instructions in his word about gender, that we were made male and female. He already decided that for us. We don't have to stress over that. Yeah. He gives us really clear instructions about sexuality and about marriage and about family. So, if we want to just make life a lot easier for ourselves, or in the afterlife, bearable and actually wonderful, then we will listen to what God says in His Word about gender, about sexuality, and about marriage.
Amen.
But it seems that we are persisting in this country in having our own way, and corporate America is feeding right into it. So let's continue. What other, we talked about some corporate shenanigans yesterday from Disney. What do you have for us today?
Well, there's a lot today, Shana, first of all. And let me just remind all of our listeners also, this is something that we screen out with our stocks. We don't want your money invested in this kind of godless agenda. That clearly what we just saw in that last verse, God hates this, dishonorable actions. If you're investing in these companies that are partaking in this stuff, your money is being used to fund this stuff, and we don't want that. So we have a couple examples here today, Shana, all in the consumer world. Macy's, Abercrombie & Fitch, American Eagle, and Levi's clothing companies are partaking in the indoctrination of America with all this stuff. We'll start with Macy's. They're partnering with the Trevor Project to indoctrinate youth. So here's a quote from Macy's. They said, as part of our Mission Everyone commitment, we offer customers, colleagues, communities, product from the LGBTQ owned, founded, and designed brands. We support pride events nationwide, foster partnerships with crucial organizations. And one of these they mention is the Trevor Project, supports LGBTQ youth through access to life-saving counseling services, uplifting PSAs, yada, yada, yada. Shana, we've talked about the Trevor Project before on this show, and it's really disastrous because it's kind of propagated as an organization that comes in to help LGBTQ youth who are struggling with suicide, when the reality is all they're offering is more confusion. And that's not going to help anyone, especially a young person who's already confused, right?
Yeah.
So
the Trevor Project.
Yeah.
One of my favorite nonprofit organizations that I love to hate.
Absolutely. And you know, it's just really sad, Shana. Sorry, I was just, cutting you off there. But yeah, what are your thoughts on the Trevor Project?
I mean, it's really despicable. You know, what really got me was I read a story of a mom who had a confused teenager. Who was very depressed, and she was seeking out help for her teen. She was looking in the wrong places because the right place to look is to the scriptures. But she found the Trevor Project, and so she went in and kind of did her own undercover work, and she got into some of the chat rooms there. And what she discovered was that there's nobody checked to see how old she was. Nobody checked to see how old the people who were chatting with her were. And they were giving some really wretched advice. They were telling her that they could really help her, even if her parents didn't agree with sex change hormones, they could help her get in touch with some of those, giving her tips on, I guess, Target clothing lines about tuck-friendly swimsuits and binders and things like that, things that just you would never want your child having a conversation with anyone about. And then the conversations turned even more despicable, into details about sexual encounters and things like that. It was just really, really despicable. So congratulations, Macy's. You'll never get any of my clients or my investment dollars, and we'll certainly never recommend that any of our partners give you any of their investment dollars either, unless you repent. So there is still time.
Absolutely. Shana, as you were mentioning the Trevor Project there, which, by the way, Macy's has raised more than $6 million for the Trevor Project in the last 5 years. It's a lot of money. It's just a reminder that we fund darkness with money and we fund the light with money. We got to fund the light with our money. But it just reminded me, as you were talking about the Trevor Project, so much of what is at the heart of what seems to be this agenda, and we see this horribly when you see the drag queens jiggling in front of children, is this desire to live out their sexual fetishes in front of children. And this is all related. It's all related, and it's despicable, and it's gross. And it's an example of sin just leading to more and more gross, intense, wretched sin. We got to stand against this.
And it's a progression. Because you know what's next for the LGBTQ alphabet?
Pedophilia.
Pedophilia.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's the next one.
And polygamy.
Yep. And
Polygamy
in some ways, the polygamy one has already fallen. And even with pedophilia. I mean, there's even just the language of a minor attracted person that tries to soften it. No, you're a pedophile with a gross sexual perversion, and you need to stop and repent. Like that's what it is.
Yeah.
So.
And then there was even Doritos.
Yeah.
You know, we talked about that on the show.
Yep.
Now, they squelched that fairly quickly, but they,
thankfully,
just like Bud Light, hired a social media influencer to be their spokesperson. And this was over in Europe. It was a man who thinks he's a woman or thinks he wants to be a woman or however that is. I don't know if he's had the surgeries or not or whatever. But as he was, shortly after he was hired, he came out, not necessarily on the platform for Doritos, but speaking very publicly about what he would like to do to 12-year-old girls in a very sexually explicit description. And he was promptly fired for that. But come on, you got to know. You got to know what you're getting into. I mean, don't you interview people? Don't you look at what they're saying publicly before you? I mean, you have to. I mean, that's what convinces you to hire them in the first place, because you think that they have influence over, different groups of, I guess, the demographic that you're going after. I mean, I don't know why it matters what your sexual preference is as to what kind of chips you like. I don't know.
I know. It's really true. That's shameful stuff, Shana. In some other shenanigans in the consumer realm here, we also have Abercrombie & Fitch has also partnered with the Trevor Project with its 2024 Made with Pride gender inclusive collection. Also, American Eagle is donating $100,000 to another nonprofit, It Gets Better, which is a nonprofit, quote, dedicated to helping LGBTQ youth celebrate queer life. And then Levi's is offering a new Rodeo Glamour for Pride 2024 collection. It'll donate $100,000 to another organization that promotes transgender ideology around the globe. The sad part is it's not just the Trevor Project, Shana. There are all these different nonprofit organizations who, like us, like Preborn, like other virtuous ministries, are trying to raise money and raise awareness, and they can't do what they do without the generosity of people. The difference between us and them is we're preaching the truth and they're preaching a lie.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so important for ministries like us to stay on the air.
It is. Yeah. And you know what? It's sad to say, but the indoctrination is working. Yeah. According to a Gallup poll, 7.6% of the U.S. population now identifies as a member of the LGBTQ plus community. Well, I guess when you throw that Q in, Q is questioning.
Right.
So hopefully that just grabs more people into this group than... and hopefully they find the right answer to their question. Yeah. But, that's up. I mean, I remember, not long ago when it was only, 3% or less of the population. And now, according to this same poll, more than 1 in 5 members of Gen Z identify as LGBTQ plus, along with 10% of millennials. So 10% of millennials, 20% of Gen Z.
Yep.
Do you see how this is working?
The trend is growing. That's exactly right.
It is. And this is just becoming common language for my kids who are now 11 and 13. This is, conversation that most adults never even had 20 years ago. But now it's all over the schools. It's craziness.
It really is. It's absolutely nuts. Shannon, just a final question for you here. These companies know what they're doing. They're isolating a huge portion of their consumer base. Why do you think they keep doing it? Why are they pandering to the LGBTQ crowd?
Peer pressure.
Yeah.
They get an intense amount of pressure from these organizations. Yeah. And they go to them and they say, hey, if you don't contribute to our agenda, we're gonna call you homophobe. We're gonna organize a boycott against your products. We're gonna tell everybody that you're just full of hate. And so they're afraid. They don't have a backbone. They don't have the backbone to stand up and just say, hey, that's not our thing. We make clothes and that's what we're going to do. And, good luck to you on raising money somewhere else. But they won't stand up to it. And that's the sad thing. And sure sadly enough, some of them even buy into that agenda. Yeah. Well, I hear the music. That means we got to take a break. Thanks for sticking with us here at Financial Issues. That's why we're here, folks, to help you defund darkness with our biblically responsible investment strategy. Find out more, financialissues.org.
I started investing close to 30 years ago now. All that time, I had never heard anyone talk about setting up your portfolio in a way that glorifies God. When I first heard about it, I was listening to the radio, a show called Financial Issues. They were teaching people how to honor God with their money. I became a partner with Financial Issues, and it's been one of the best decisions I've made. Invest your money in a God-honoring way. Go to financialissues.org.
Through the ministry of Preborn, the Financial Issues family has saved tens of thousands of lives of babies. What an amazing job that God has done through you, the Financial Issues family. Would you join us in saving the lives of babies? What an amazing reunion we will have in glory, meeting all the people that we have saved. Please go to preborn.org, that is preborn.org, or financialissues.org, and click on the Preborn banner.
In the last 10 to 15 years being in ministry, being married, something that has been constant in our lives is Samaritan Ministries. As we've moved, we've had babies, we've had different things come up, we have just been able to rely on Samaritan in ways that we never really even thought about before becoming members.
Our heart's desire is to plant roots and be in a place for a really long time. It's how we were raised. We see the benefits of that. But we also see the open-handedness of being used by the Lord wherever He calls, because we just assumed when we started pursuing church planting, the quickest way to get from point A to point B is a straight line. And with the Lord, sometimes you find out it looks a lot more like this. And yet, Samaritan was with us through the entire thing.
We didn't have to look into, we have to change insurances now because we've moved states or whatever the case may be. And it's just been a real blessing to us in different phases of life.
I'm Kyle.
I'm Colleen.
We're the Gen X.
And we're Samaritan members.
If you don't get life right, you're not going to get all the other issues correct, period. It is the issue that impacts every other issue. Life is the central part of what keeps this republic together. It is the contract that the founding fathers passed down through multiple generations. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. You don't have life, you don't have a republic. There is a temptation out there right now. And I want to just tell you we must resist it. There's this temptation that we cast this issue aside. How does that honor God? It doesn't. And if it wasn't for Preborn, I would be super just confused and depressed, because there has never been, in my opinion, a more disjointed time in the pro-life movement. We need a machine to go up against the Planned Parenthood beast. Like, we have to play offense against the pro-abortion forces in this country, okay? We have to play offense. And Preborn does it in this compassionate, merciful, godly way that is just so inspiring and amazing.
Securities offered through G.A. Reppel & Company, a registered broker-dealer and investment advisor, member FINRA and SIPC. Opinions expressed by Shana are hers alone and are for informational purposes only, and do not necessarily represent those of G.A. Reppel or the outlet on which you are listening. You should consider how the information applies to your situation prior to personally implementing it, and consult any financial professional you work with to make sure it's applicable to your financial plan.
Welcome back, folks. Hope you enjoyed that conversation there. Good to be here with you today. The markets, let's take a look. They just opened up here. Everything down. Negative territory as we start. The Dow is down 1/3%. The S&P 500 is down 1/4, and the NASDAQ is down just less, a little less than 1/5, more like 1/6 or 1/7%. Each of the benchmark indices negative as the sluggish start to June seems to continue here. Hey, I did want to remind you folks, now really is a good time to become a partner. There are many benefits to becoming a partner. Of course, you get the access to our stock lists, access to conference calls, the Ask Shana page, the asset allocation models, the portfolio tracker. That's all really good stuff. But one other thing that you get access to is some of the past conference calls that we have. And one of those great conference calls that is timeless, that we have kept for our partners and will continue to do so, my understanding is for as long as we possibly can, is the Great Reset. So 1 year before Dan Celia passed away, he did a conference call about an hour long on this great reset that we've been seeing over the last 45, 50 years or so. It is worth the partnership for that alone. So if you are interested in becoming a partner and you want to listen to that and get a sense of what seems to be really going on behind the scenes with all this stuff, with the transgender stuff and with the different wars that are breaking out and with the fight for life, and even I think the COVID pandemic was connected. All this stuff seems to be connected to that. Dan's conference call on the Great Reset, this was from January of 2021, really, really good. Really, really good. So I would encourage you to go ahead and listen to that if you are a partner. If you're not a partner and you want to listen to that conference call, become a partner today and then go listen to the conference call. I mean, it's really good. And it's very, very timeless. So just wanted to encourage you in that there. Okay, so I posed the question at the beginning of the program, which is this. What do we make of companies simply using the rainbow in their marketing for June? Is this enough to make them biblically responsible, non-biblically responsible? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the chat there, folks. In light of what Shana and I just talked about, we're seeing these companies just totally bow the knee to the false god of the LGBTQ madness. And I want to be as clear as possible about this because we're going to see this everywhere. You're going to see a lot of companies changing their logos and giving positive language and saying, we're inclusive, yeah, we're DEI, all that stuff. We're going to see that. And many of you have rightfully asked, is this enough for a company? Say a company that's biblically responsible does this. Is this enough for them to automatically say, okay, they're off. They're not biblically responsible anymore? And I'll tell you right off the bat here, folks, that for starters, when we see this happen, we cannot ignore it. Cannot ignore it. If you see a company that makes its logo rainbow colored, you have to research that. You have to look into that. At the same time, though, we also have to see what is happening here. Many of these companies are exhibiting outward support for the pride movement because they're fundamentally flawed. So I'll give you an example. The companies that we just mentioned in that last segment, fundamentally flawed. Last year, we studied, there was something that happened in Major League Baseball of all places. The Los Angeles Dodgers, they changed their logo to a pride flag logo, but they also invited a satanic pride group that blasphemes Jesus Christ to come and be honored at their Pride Night game last June. This is an organization that is fundamentally flawed. On the other hand, you also see companies, though, who will promote positive sounding language for the LGBTQ stuff, and maybe they'll change their logo for one reason. And that reason is to stay under the radar until June passes. Very interesting here, to stay under the radar until June passes. So they're not fundamentally flawed. They will still screen clean, even though they've got the rainbow colors and they've got the positive sounding language. Is this right? Not a chance. Is it virtuous? Absolutely not. Is it courageous? No. Is it an example for us? Absolutely not. Is it cowardly? Absolutely it is. Should we condemn it? Yes. But does it call into question BRI status? Well, not always. And it's very interesting here. And so as we continue this conversation, I want to highlight a recent interview that Shana did with Brian Mumbert of the Timothy Plan to kind of bring some sense to this. So we'll play this interview now, and then coming back out of the next break, we'll kind of try to make some more sense of it. So here's Shana Burt, recent interview that she did with Brian Mumbert of the Timothy Plan.
What do we make of so many companies in corporate America really getting involved with this? You know, we see in the month of June, lots of companies change their logo to rainbow. They make some kind of statement saying that they're behind this inclusivity, this DEI agenda. You know, what do we make of this? Why are they doing it? Are they bowing to an agenda, or do they really believe in what they're saying? Is it just marketing?
Yeah, so for some companies, and we know these companies well, some of the really large ones, it certainly is part of the quote agenda of their organization. It's something they want to push. It's something they want to help legislate, and they want to put their weight behind. But for many of the smaller companies that are out there, that ultimately do turn a rainbow logo on in June, many times it's a defense mechanism for them, and we've seen that. You know, the easiest way to stay under the radar, and sometimes, and unfortunately, is to almost to pander, you know, in a way to the side that you fear is going to attack you the most. And in this case, the very vocal minority out there will crucify a company for doing, you know, for not doing what they think is enough. And so many times these companies will ultimately, you know, turn their logo to a rainbow and flip it right back after June is over, and hope for the best, and that they just stay undercover and not get blasted, and so. That's part of the research of Timothy Plan. We really need to look at, does a company have an agenda? Is a company pursuing something? And so that it's a lot to take into account.
Sounds pretty cowardly, I guess.
It does. It really does.
So we know that the Timothy Plan screens out that this is the lifestyle screen is one that Timothy uses. And since it's Pride Month, let's kind of focus in on that one today. What are the activities? What are the things that Timothy looks for in companies to determine whether or not they fail the screen for lifestyle?
Well, as unfortunate as it is, the lifestyle screen has become the largest screen that Timothy Plan does. And I guess everyone can probably figure out why. Because it is so prevalent in society now, and because companies seem to go out of their way for these things. And that's really what we're looking for here. Do we have a company that flips a rainbow logo, turns it back off, and that's all they do? We're not looking for something like that. And we've always had the stance that we're not going to screen for a company that offers benefits to their employees as long as they're offering benefits to all their employees. That's an issue of fairness. But where we really want to look is, does a corporation from a corporate level, are they angling to pass legislation for this? Are they pursuing this as far as sponsoring myriads of pride events all over the country? Are they going out of their way to offer transgender benefits or for sex changes for their employees and things like that? So we're looking deeper, because a lot of times you will have like the HRC or the Human Rights Campaign give a score, and of course their angle is the better scores they can give the more companies, the better they can make this agenda look. Mm-hmm. And so you have to look underneath all that stuff as well and ensure that these scores are not just because they went on their website and they saw a nice statement that said they did something and counted it as a great thing. So it's, as you can imagine, it is a lot of work. It is the most work that our screening team does.
Well, I remember last year, we even got a comment from a partner last year about Cracker Barrel, and they were selling rainbow-colored rocking chairs.
Wild.
So what about something like that? Does that make for a violation?
We're going to have to look a little deeper on these things. And some of the stuff that's interesting that we'll find is like a company will have a branch, and maybe it's in a city like Austin, Texas. And we know Austin's weird, but
that's our logo. Keep Austin weird.
One-off thing that one branch does, but the corporation doesn't have a policy for this. We have to look a lot deeper into these things. So it's a challenge, Shana, and ultimately, I mean, with the abortion issue, it's very clear. It is a life. It is fetal stem cell research. You can draw the line very clearly. Mm-hmm. And in here, unfortunately, you're going to have to make some judgment calls in this area as best we can and as human as we are.
Yeah, I can remember one stock that has gotten questioned a lot for us because people see some things on their website, but it's a restaurant company and they have franchises. And so, like you said, they don't have a corporate policy for these certain things, but some of the franchise owners have done things, maybe given some money to local festivals or things like that. And so those are the lines of delineation, I guess. And then there's, with the franchises, and then there's some that just are maybe getting into some gray areas and some things that may, like I can think of one specialty retailer company that somebody sent us a whole article about something that they did in a community. So, I got in because it was Screen and Clean, and I got in and I looked, and it turns out it was only like what you said. It was in one community. The one store had a little bit of discretion on some of the dollars that they could deploy in their own community, and they gave a little bit. I think it was like $5,000 to a little. I even got on and watched some of the footage from the festival, and it was tiny. But
right. Anyway. I mean, at the end of the day, yes, it like I said, it is the most challenging screen, and I know that there's probably not a way to make an investment product with enough companies, if the line goes down to zero, and where you described right there, where you're removing all of these companies, the unfortunate part of being in the fallen world that we're in is that we're going to have these issues.
Folks, hope you enjoyed that. We'll make some sense on the next side of this break here. We'll be back right after this. Stick with us.
One of the emphases of preborn has been ultrasound in two ways. An ultrasound machine if a pregnancy clinic doesn't have one, and then an ultrasound session, which we underwrite hundreds of thousands of those. We've seen over and over again the dramatic results that when a woman encounters her baby for the first time and hears that heartbeat, she realizes the magnitude of what's happening here, that there is somebody else, that's her baby. So this is why preborn pushes out ultrasound as much as we possibly can. Preborn has seen over 200,000 babies saved, over 59,000 people come to Christ, populating earth and eternity, life for this life and life forever. Save the baby's life, but save the mother's life so that she can lead that baby to Christ. If we're bringing people into this world and the mother doesn't receive Christ and the child is born and the child lives its life and doesn't receive Christ, this is not a good end. And so we have to have the gospel as part and parcel and really the heartbeat of what preborn is.
If anybody's listening, thinking about joining, there's nothing like it. It's been great. I have peace of mind. I feel confident continuing to work. There's just a lot of things that y'all have added to my financial peace.
You guys are the man. So I encourage everybody, partner, get in there and watch the videos. Portfolio after portfolio, you hear the stories. It works. And you guys make it possible. And I thank you for that.
Married couples or even engaged, as you're coming together, working on your finances, God has blessed us incredibly, and it's been incredible to see what He's done in our lives. Just want to thank you, Financial Issues.
As a novice investor, which I am, and I'm certainly learning so much from y'all. Thank you so much. Y'all take the fear out of it. Then my portfolio is doing great.
You've really encouraged us, and I know you've probably encouraged so many others as well.
Become a partner today by simply going to financialissues.org/join. Click the green button to become a partner. That's financialissues.org/join.
The opinions and recommendations expressed on this program do not necessarily represent the opinions of the station or any of the program sponsors. Additionally, all products or services offered by the program sponsors may not be known by the program.
You know, folks, as we talk about this stuff, and I hope that interview made sense to you there, I just want to make very clear what we're saying here. We are not in any way trying to soften the truth of how wretched this stuff is. What we're trying to show you here with this in particular is what's really going on. With many of these companies, a lot of good, solid companies you will see during the month of June, they will put a rainbow flag as their logo for the month of June, basically to silence the annoying crowd that is growing and growing, and basically telling them, you better do this or else we're going to, blacklist you pretty much. As I said before that clip, is it honorable? No. Is it commendable? No. Is it cowardly? Yes. Should we personally be that way? Absolutely not. But does it mean that if a company does this, they're no longer biblically responsible? And the answer to that is it depends. Sometimes companies will do that and they'll still be clean because they're just trying to save face. I am not excusing these companies at all. I'm not excusing them at all. I think it's wretched and I think it's cowardly. And what companies should do is they should say, you know what, we're not going to bow to this stuff. We're just going to sell our products. All that we're trying to say here is that sometimes this happens, and with this particular issue, there can be some nuance here and there. Now, I'll say this as well. It's very, very different if you are talking about this in the context of the church. So if a church puts a pride flag out, you should run the other direction because that is not an actual church. That church worships Satan. They're not a real church. I think that's very, very clear. With companies, there's a little bit of nuance, could be a little bit different there. So I hope that makes sense for you folks. Obviously, your conscience is really important here, but we really do believe that we're just asking companies to stay neutral and encouraging these companies to, do that. I hope that made sense there. If you've got questions about that, man, put them in the chat there. Absolutely. It's a really interesting topic here. But we believe, to kind of wrap it all up, if you follow our strategy, you're really going to do a great job. And not only that, but you're going to honor God with the money that he's given you. And there's nothing better than that. So it's really good stuff. By the way, speaking of Timothy Plan, tomorrow Art Alley is going to join me live on the program. If you've got questions for Art, go ahead and send them to me. You can put them in the chat there, or you can also send them to my email, seth@fism.tv, if you've got questions for him. If they're along the lines of the topic that Shana and Brian talked about, if you've got questions about other things, send them to me. I'd love to be able to do that. I always enjoy when Art comes on the program with me. He's going to join me tomorrow during the second half of the show. So we do have the Ag Report coming up here, folks. Wanted to mention today, Craig Haugard is having surgery right around 2 o'clock Eastern time. So please lift up Craig and his wife, Lori, in prayer. Laura, I think his name is actually Laura. Craig's wife's name, Laura. So please do lift up Craig in prayer as he is preparing to have surgery here. But we do have the Ag Report from Craig Haugard coming up here. So farmers and ranchers, enjoy. And here is today's Ag Report with Craig Haugard.
This is Craig Haugard with your Financial Issues Egg update for June 4th. We yesterday saw corn fall for the 5th consecutive session. That crop is now 91% planted, and we had our first crop condition report yesterday. That pegged the crop at 75% good to excellent, 5 points better than what the trade was expecting. At the close, July corn was 2 3/4 cents lower at 443.5. In a wonderful world of soybeans, the U.S. weather pattern is favorable enough to allow the completion of all the acres that are intended to be planted into beans. Brazil's basis is weakening as farmers sell beans in that nation, and that fundamental-driven selling that resulted from those two pieces of information pushed prices low enough to trigger technical selling yesterday, and that's when it got ugly. At the close, July beans were 20 1/2 cents lower at 11.84.5. Wheat was a Russian story yesterday. Russia's government said it might declare a national emergency due to the frost that damaged crops earlier this session, and that caused the night session to rocket higher. On the other hand, the Russian cash crops were totally unmoved by that government statement, and when they didn't react, it caused a sell-off here in the U.S., and when the smoke cleared, we'd put in a key reversal to the downside. Minneapolis July wheat was 6 cents lower at 7.33 3/4. Kansas City dropped by 8 3/4 cents to close at $7 even, and we had Chicago 5 3/4 cents lower at 6.72 3/4. Cotton futures broke sharply, with July futures down to 300-point limit at 73.15. The USDA's monthly cotton consumption and stocks report showed cotton consumed in the U.S. during the month of April was down 15.4% from the prior month. Livestock futures were mixed. August live cattle were 42.5 cents higher, $178.87.5 per hundredweight. August feeder cattle dropped by 20 cents, selling at $256.20 per hundred. And we had August lean hog futures 87.5 cents lower at $95.62.5 per hundredweight. Class 3 milk futures absolutely exploded out of the starting gate on Monday. At the close, we had July futures up 35 points as they settled at 20.64. Well, this has been Craig Haugard with your Financial Issues Egg update. We'll be right back with more financial issues after this.
Folks, that's Craig Haugard there on the Ag Report for today. Got a good question that came in from Eddie. Yes, I'd love to explain this on the air, brother. Eddie's asking, what does Guidestone funds support? Eddie, if you run Guidestone through the screener tool, you'll actually find several infractions. Unfortunately, it's ranging from different infractions such as pornography to abortion to gambling. In fact, I'm just checking one of them right now here so I can give you some examples. Alcohol exploitation. I mean, it's a lot of stuff there. So we had a little bit of a conversation there in the chat there, and Dan for years had tried to encourage large churches to get away from organizations like this that are supporting things that grieve the heart of God. And so it's a wide variety of things there, Eddie. And I know John was asking kind of about that too. I would encourage you run some of those funds through our screener tools, and you'll kind of get a little more of a sense of what they actually look like there. By the way, if you want to use that screener, it's very easy to do. Partners and non-partners can use it as well. It's Financial Issues, and it is, I think non-partners can use it if I'm not mistaken. Let me just confirm that here really quickly. But I believe that it's free for anyone to use. But yeah, if you go to our website, Financial Issues, you go to the Resources tab, you go to Evaluator. That will take you where you can actually run your companies through that screening tool there, and it'll help you kind of understand that. I hope that makes sense there, you guys in the chat. If you have follow-up questions, please feel free to ask. But folks, we are trying to honor God with the money that He's given us, and it's a tall order. It's not easy, but it is simple. It's very, very simple. We're asking companies to just do what they do well. That's all we're asking them to do. Pretty simple there. So let's get to some good wisdom from Dan here as well to close out our show. I think we'll definitely have time for this one here, where he talks about real estate as an investment. This is really good insight that Dan gives here. Shana's on with him in this clip, so it'll be good to see the two of them together. Here's Dan Celia talking about real estate as an investment.
I like real estate, and I just bought a house, a rent house. And I know that you had made some comments in the past about watching out in the future, maybe sometime next year, that there may be some type of crash or downfall in the real estate. You still see that?
You bought that for a rental property, you mean?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. I don't think you have to worry about it, Joe, to be honest with you. I think that if you purchased a rental property that you plan on renting and keeping into retirement, it's going to go down. It's going to go back up again, and you'll be fine. What matters to you is the income that it produces. Hopefully, the cash flow is positive now. So you only have one concern with that, and I think it's a good thing that you did that. I like that. I think it's going to generate, has potential of generating nice income for you someday if you're okay, with being a landlord and doing all that. I think it'll be good for you. So I don't have a problem with that. I just want you to be positive. So in your cash flow. So, that's important. If you're just barely making your mortgage payment with the rent, that's not a good thing. You only have one risk. The risk is vacancy, particularly if you have a mortgage. Because when you buy a property, you have to think a worst-case scenario. Worst-case scenario is I don't have a tenant. Can I carry it? Can I pay the mortgage, the insurance, and the taxes while I'm, waiting to get a tenant? And I think that is, if you can, then you've minimized the one risk you have. So the economy falls through. Now renters don't have rent money. People don't have jobs. The rental market drops significantly, and that could be a problem for you. So you have to make sure that you can overcome that. But I think it's a wise thing that you did. I wouldn't worry about the value of the house so much unless you have to fire sale it because you can't make it work. Then that becomes a little bit of a risk. I don't like rental properties personally because I don't have the disposition to do all the landlord stuff and mess with it. But I'll tell you, when I did have a rental property, it was very seldom vacant for any length of time because I didn't have a debt commitment on it. And my thing was I was very picky, and I rented it to whoever I knew could pay the rent and would pay the rent and had a need. And, I never had to worry about it. So I have since sold it. But, I think it's a great idea, particularly if you're starting late. It's a great source of income.
Well, great wisdom as always there, folks. And the time has come to say goodbye once again. We have had a great show today, and I hope you all have enjoyed today's show. I want to remind you one more time, if you're interested in becoming a partner, today's a great day to do it. If you do become a partner, make sure to give a listen to Dan's conference call he did on the Great Reset. And pray for our ministry as well. Next week, we go on a new TV outlet, NRB TV. We're very, very excited for that. You all can be praying for us with that. I appreciate you so much. And Lord willing, we'll do it again tomorrow. Until then, folks, remember, it's all His. All belongs to the Lord. So let's be found good and faithful stewards with the money that God has given to us. God bless each of you. Thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you tomorrow for more financial issues.
If we ever forget that we're one nation under God, then we will be a nation gone under.
Thank you for joining us. This has been an FISM production.